It's interesting. I think the number one tip when you're in that struggle would be to ask, what is the lesson from this? And here's another secret, is the obstacle's often not what's in the way, it is the way. And so as I'm lying there doing this breath work, all I can think about is dinner. I'm like, I'm starving, I just want to eat. But I thought, no, I'm going to see how this could be, the obstacle is the way instead of in the way. So I asked the question, I said, okay, what does this hunger have to teach me? And the immediate thought I got was, Allison, it's not really food that your soul is craving, it's self-acceptance.
Hello and welcome to the Real Success Show. I'm your host, Candice Mama. If you've heard the words, trust your intuition, intuitive leadership, trust that inner feeling, and you have no idea what it is or how to do it, then today's speaker is just for you. Her name is Allison Larsen, and she is a soul intuitive teacher. But before we jump into it, be sure that you like, share, and subscribe so that more people can find us. Now, here's Allison. Such a pleasure to have you on the Real Success Show. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, I'm so glad that you have me here. Thank you, Candice.
Oh, Allison, I'm so looking forward to our conversation because the topic you speak about, I think so many people need. But before we jump into it, how do you describe yourself?
That's a really great question. It's interesting, Candice, because I teach people something that I call the art of bragging, which is how to really brag about themselves and describe themselves. But, sometimes when I get put on the spot and ask that question, it's interesting because part of me wants to brag about all these, successes I've had in my life and my business. And part of me just wants to open up my heart and share who I am inside. So if I were to pick two words to describe myself, I would say intuitive and also connected. Those are the two. That's my gift, is connection.
I love that, intuitive and connected. And if you had to brag about yourself, what would you say?
Well, if I had to brag about myself, I would say that I have been really blessed and privileged. I remember that moment when I laid on my floor in my master bedroom after yoga and Shavasana and said, God, universe, I surrender. I just want to be an instrument in your hands. And since then, I've been able to reach thousands of people all over the world through stages. Sorry, little frog in my throat there. Through stages, and I've, thousands of stages all over the world, been able to reach millions of people. And, I've had my own TV shows, radio shows. I've been able to publish a book. I've helped thousands of people be able to get on stages, publish their books, feature them on my radio show and TV show. So it's just a real privilege. One of my things that I'm most passionate about is really helping people that have good messages be able to reach the masses.
I love that. Do you find that when you ask people to brag about themselves or to speak highly of themselves, do people tend to have a resistance to that?
Yeah, it's really interesting, Candice, because I've seen two different things. So for years, I've run something called the Speakers Coalition. And it's really interesting because there are some speakers that tend towards totally bragging. And years ago, it used to be that speakers would get up on stage and they would be like, well, you should have, a private jet and millions of dollars like me. And everybody be like, oh my gosh, I want to know how they did it. But recently that actually causes a disconnect with people. And something that other speakers struggle with, and this is probably the large majority, is something that I call the humility myth, right? They don't want to brag about themselves. They don't want to say what they've been able to do or accomplish in their life. But the problem with that is when you're being interviewed or you're on stages or you're on TV, if you aren't willing to brag about yourself and say some of the things that you've been able to do, then people might not listen to you. And research has actually shown that people have 7 to 8 seconds once they start listening to an interview or something like that to decide whether or not that they're going to listen to you, whether or not you're an expert. So it is an important thing to learn how to do. But if I could just share with you really quickly, because this is my favorite thing, is there's this formula called the art of bragging, and it's really simple. It's something that I teach people to do, and I just used it a little bit right now, but you pick 3 things that you've done that would impress your, audience or the people that you would want to listen to you, and you state those 3 things, and then you follow that by, but what I'm really passionate about is, and so that helps people get to know your heart as well.
Oh, that is so smart. I love that. I'm going to definitely be using that. it's a very easy formula to get your mind around. And I think it's also something all our listeners can start using, because I think people just genuinely, if you're coming from a good place, I think people can pick up on that energy. If you are saying these three things about yourself and you're not saying it like, I am the world's greatest.
Well, here's the other secret is when you do talk about the things that you've accomplished, if you'll notice, they use the term blessed or privileged. I've been really blessed to. I've been really privileged. I'm so grateful. It's been such an honor to. And so that kind of, tames down the feeling like you're coming from ego.
I love that. And it's so funny because I naturally do that anyway, like in terms of because I genuinely am, I feel very blessed and I feel very grateful. So when I say it, it's not like, something I'm just saying to others. And when you started, you said you intuitive and you connected, you love connectedness. What do those words mean to you?
Thank you so much for asking. Well, I wrote the book Soul Intuition, and that's actually a topic that I often speak on and have appeared on the Real Success Summit speaking on intuition. And intuition is that inner knowing, that gut feeling. I often ask people when I come on to an interview or when I'm on a summit, I say, well, how would you describe intuition? And it's often described by a feeling. And that's really that inner knowing. And I believe that intuition is that part of us, that subconscious part of us that always knows what to do next, that always has that, inner vision or inner knowing. And then the connectedness is really important because being connected to yourself is what allows you to tap into your intuition. And then I'm just a natural connector. Connector to me means taking these different energies, whether they be the energies of people and connecting the energies of people that need to come together, or, connecting the energy of thoughts together, or connecting, sometimes it's energies. One of the things I love to do is my husband and I, we take people all over the world on these spiritual adventure retreats, these high-level entrepreneurs. And I love to connect people with places, because there's this energy or this feeling of a group of people, and then this sacred energy or feeling of a space. So that connected to me means when there's two energies that need to come together, or that could come together and create something greater together as they are individuals. So that's what I love doing.
I love that. Sounds so beautiful. And we're going to touch on the connectedness now, because I think it's such a unique and interesting way to look at it, the way you've just described it. I want to go back to intuition a little bit. When we're talking about that feeling, a lot of people tend to struggle with, is this my intuition or is it fear? Is this intuition or is it ego? Is this intuition or is it set thing? So how do people define the difference between their intuition and their fear-based thinking or their ego-based thinking?
It's really interesting that you ask that, because it really does come down to a feeling inside. And I'll tell you a couple of things that I've learned and that I teach people when it comes to intuition to be able to recognize. First of all, intuition, it really needs direction. So intention fuels intuition. It's kind of like a GPS system. Mm-hmm. So if you don't know where you want to go, then your intuition, you're going to be fuzzy on your intuition, right? There's this story, Alice in Wonderland, that was written by Lewis Carroll. And there's this part of the book that I just love. It describes intuition so perfectly. Alice has never been to Wonderland before. And she's walking along as she comes to a crossroad, and she doesn't know whether she should go right or left. Well, luckily, just then the Cheshire Cat appears. And the Cheshire Cat's like this representation of our intuition or our subconscious. And of course, he knows Wonderland, right? He's been there before. So she asked him, she said, Cheshire Cat, which way should I go? And he said, well, that depends on where you want to end up. And she said, I don't really care. And he said, then it doesn't matter which road you take. And so often I see people in life and they're like, I'm just going to just go with the flow, whatever I'm supposed to do. But then they end up getting stuck. And I said, well, it's great to go with the flow, but that's after you have a long-term goal or intention. That's after you know what you want, where you want to go. And then it's really simple. All you need to do at that point is ask the question, what do I do? Or when you get to those crossroads, keeping that vision or that goal in mind, listening to that calm feeling inside. And another tip with intuition, you mentioned something, which is fear. Intuition is never fear-based. It's always based in love and centeredness. And the best time to tap into the subconscious, which is basically the intuition, is either when we're sleeping or when we're in meditation, or right after we're sleeping or right after we're in meditation. So what I mean by that is it's that egoless letting go of everything, becoming nothing, no one, nowhere. Dr. Joe Dispenza talks a lot about this. But that's done through sleep. Wayne Dyer says that the most important 5 minutes of your day to tap into your intuition is the 5 minutes before you go to sleep. So that's when you ask the questions. That's when you think about the things you want to know and write them down on a notepad by your bed. Ask a question that you want to know and then go to sleep. Don't try and think about it. Wake up in the morning, and when you're still in that dream state, that state where you remember your dreams, that's when you're still connected to your intuition. That's when you read the question, you write down the first answer that comes to your, or I won't say comes to your mind, flows through you. And that's, the answer. You can do the same with meditation. Ask a question, go into meditation, deep meditation, where you're reaching those higher level states. And then coming out of meditation, again, when you're still kind of in that really gooey, good feeling state, read your question that you wrote down and write down the first answer that flows through you, and don't question it. Intuition's also a muscle. If you ask these questions, if you have these intuitive thoughts and answers, and then you doubt yourself and you don't do it, and doubt yourself and you don't do it, it creates this mistrust between you and your intuition. And then you won't know. You will have confusion around it because there's not that muscle built. There's not that trust built with your intuition.
I love that you highlighted the trust, because as you're building your intuition, it's all about learning to trust that. And the more you follow it, I'd assume the stronger your intuition would get, right? And the easier it would be to identify it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So the more that you listen, the more you do. And you know what? This is the crazy thing. Sometimes you'll write down a question. So for example, I may have a goal of having a more connected relationship with somebody in my family. And so before I go to bed, I write down the question, how can I create a more connected relationship with, let's say this person's name, and I go to sleep. And then the next morning I wake up, and maybe the first thing that flows through me is take a bath. And I'm thinking, what does that have to do with building this more connected relationship? But I follow through on it. And as I'm in the bath, I realize, wow, I've been really stressed lately. This has been causing a lot of stress in my relationship with that person. And then I start thinking about them, and I tune into their energy, and I get some really amazing ideas, or maybe I figure out like a text that I can write to that person. I do it right there in the bath. But it's that not questioning, because sometimes the answer we get doesn't make sense to us logically. It doesn't make sense to our conscious mind, but our subconscious, our intuition always knows what it's doing. And so don't doubt it. Just follow through on the action step that you get, and you'll find that you build that trust within yourself.
Well, thank you for that example. I think it's so brilliant, because I think often that's what happens. It's something that you're not thinking about. And as you're doing, and I found that my intuition I access the most when I'm doing a remedial task, like something like washing dishes or something. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, okay. That sounds great. Like, I got it.
Yeah.
It's in those moments of routine. And speaking of those tasks that we do, I think the reason I get that is because it's the least distracted time in my day. I'm paying attention to one thing. My brain has time to roam. In this time where we are so stimulated consistently and continuously by food, music, movies, like our phones, we constantly have an entertainment device at our reach. How do we allow ourselves the freedom of actually going within instead of seeking all the answers outside?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I want to bring what you said about doing the dishes into that. And one of those things is there are these meditative things that we can do. Driving is actually a really great time to tap into your intuition if you aren't stressed about it. So like just going for a beautiful drive out in nature, because your body's doing something. So especially for those of us like me that are ADD, like sometimes having my body do something, going on a walk, things like this, it actually puts me into that meditative state where I can connect more with my thoughts, where I can get those ideas. But when I'm on a screen, it's consuming my brain power in a way that doesn't allow me just to listen. And it's really interesting because Mark Twain said a long time ago, he said, wise people listen when they would have rather been talking. wise people listen when they would have rather been talking. And it's interesting, to think about this in respect to our inner voice. Okay, so there's two things that can be going on within our brain. Either we can have a dialogue where we're talking. That means our energy is going out this way. And this is what happens when we're on screens and things, right? We're having a constant conversation with the screen. We're having a constant conversation in our mind with the characters on the screen, or with the game that we're playing, or with the text that we're doing, or with the thing that we're typing, right? But how often do we just take time to listen? Do we sit and do we actually listen to what our subconscious has to say to us, rather than always giving it, feeding that information? And there's some things that I found that are really helpful. And there's one simple thing that has impacted my day more than anything else. And it's so simple. It's simply water, walk, breathe. So first thing, when I wake up in the morning, I look at the question I wrote down, I write the answer, that flows through me. I drink water. So there's three things that our body really needs in order to survive. Number one is most important is breath. If you don't have breath, you're going to die very soon. Second is water. And then third is activity or food, or, these processes, these functions that our body goes through every day. So to wake up in the morning and you give your body what it needs, you give it water, you give it air. So doing some kind of breathing exercise. Tony Robbins talks about this a lot with priming, doing that, whatever that is for you. You can also state, well, there's lots of different breath work out there, but doing just a simple 2 to 3 minute breath work practice, and then going on a 5-minute walk and just getting my body system moving before I eat. This is also a great time where I can listen, just take a moment to listen. And if I do those 3 things in the morning, I'm starting my day by telling my body, okay, I'm going to give you what you need, building that trust. And then also taking that moment to listen when I go on the walk. So often what people do is when they wake up in the morning, I'm tempted to do this all the time, just grab your phone, who texted me, who liked my Facebook post, or my Instagram, or TikTok, whatever, your social media preference is. But that immediately snaps us out of our subconscious, snaps us out of the listening mode and into that dialogue with our technology.
Wow. I've never even thought of it that way, that we are in constant dialogue. I didn't view it like that. And when you said the Mark Twain quote, I've heard it before, in terms of other people and connecting with other people, but I never thought about it as connecting with self. And I think that is deeply powerful. So in this world where we are so pressurized, right, to do and live and be because of these new arenas that all of a sudden humanity has adapted to, like Instagram, Facebook, all of a sudden everyone is visually looked at all the time. We put ourselves out there all the time. And I find that so many people get lost in who am I, Allison, as opposed to like who I am portraying or who I am expected to be. How do people get into that connectedness with self when they feel that there's so much pressure all around?
That's a really good question. There's something that comes immediately to my mind. This is interesting, because if I were to think about it and not follow my intuitions, probably isn't where I would go with this. But the first thing that flows through me when you ask that question is the difference between light workers and light warriors. So I think all light warriors are to some extent some light workers, but not all light workers turn into light warriors. And what do I mean by that? Some people get triggered by that term, but all I'm simply saying is that in life, we get the most fulfillment when we share our light with other people, and when we learn or glean from other people's light. So it's this exchange of light, right? And it's interesting because some people feel this calling in their life. I'm sure if you're listening to this right now, it's because you're wanting to be better somehow. You're wanting to get more information. You're wanting to gain more knowledge or get more what I call light in your life. And these light workers are people who feel called to that self-development, who feel called to raise their frequency, who feel called to learn and grow in some aspect. And because they do, then they, pass that along to other people, or they just naturally are going to raise the vibrational frequency of the planet, right? Where some people get caught up and confused in that is, oh, I want to help other people. I want to raise the frequency of the planet. I want to show up the best that I can. But then, like you said, they get caught in this image war, right? This label, this I have to be defined. What are people going to think of me? How do I need to show up? How do I need to act? And oftentimes, and I've done this before, get caught in the trap of I need to look like I have everything figured out, or I need to be a certain way in order for people to love and accept me. Now, not every light worker gets caught in that, but oftentimes where people get stuck is when they get stuck in that. Well, the difference between being a light worker and being a light warrior is the surrender of the ego, is the willingness to let everything die that you've ever thought about yourself, or any label that you've ever placed on yourself, to let that completely die in order to find out who you truly are. And there's a couple of ways to do that. First of all, if this really needs to happen, it's going to happen. And either you can surrender to it, or the universe will provide opportunities for this to happen. And this happened to me when my business was growing. I went from a reach of 2,000 people a month to 2 million people per month in 9 months. And this was a huge, massive growth. I went from basically being a stay-at-home mom / closet entrepreneur in a small town of 5,000 people in Idaho to speaking internationally, writing my book, having a TV show, having a radio show, interviewing celebrities on the red carpet at Walt Disney Concert Hall in LA, like my second time ever in LA, like all these massive growth experiences. And at the same time, the universe is like, all right, you said you were going to surrender and you're resisting. So I'm going to take everything away from you that you thought about yourself. I'm going to, take this label away of wife. I went through a divorce. I'm going to take this label away of, stay-at-home mom. I'm going to take your label away of religion. I transitioned out of the religion I grew up in. I'm going to take this, and slowly, one by one, all these identities that I thought defined me, that made me who I was. Like if I was a good mom, I was a good person. If I was a good wife, I was a good person. If I was a good church member, I was a good person. All taken away. And it forced me to really find, who I was inside, and to discover that, at the core, it was just me. There's one experience I had that really stood out to me. It was actually during a deep meditative journey, and it was a huge gift, although it was painful at the time. It was out in the woods, and I was on this deep dive, meditative journey. And all of a sudden I saw myself just crumpled on the floor, in my mind's eye vision. And I realized I was being rejected by my children, and being rejected by my clients, and being rejected by, the world. And the only person standing there was myself. And I had this choice, do I love myself even if nobody else does? And in that moment, I was able to say yes. And, in answer to your question, if you're able to love yourself, even if nobody else did, nobody else in the world did, then, you've reached that place where you've let go of the ego enough, where you don't create your identity based on your social media, or how many likes you get, or, how you show up. And it's from that place that you can find true acceptance and happiness, because the only person's acceptance that really matters is yourself.
That is so profound. And it brings me back to, the idea that so many people around the world, different socioeconomic backgrounds, sexes, whatever it may be, struggle with the concept of even feeling worthy enough to, exist, let alone feel as though they can love themselves and accept themselves as they are. And I know that journey is a really difficult one. And as you were saying, as these titles were being removed from your life, even though you are the Allison you are today in front of us, I'm sure there was so much pain in those processes, as you were shedding, as you were releasing, as you were letting go, there was so much pain that was occurring. When you were in that moment of pain, and you were in that tower moment, as I like to refer to it, how did you keep yourself moving forward one step at a time?
Yeah, it's interesting you asked that question. I remember this moment. I was living in Idaho at the time and filming my TV show in California. And I was flying into California the night before my show, and everything went wrong. The flight got delayed. I'd had a big argument with my ex-husband, like nothing was going right. I had some people, the more you get out there, it's just by default, you're going to have some people that don't like you, and so I had somebody text, or put a comment on my Facebook page that was just horrible. And I woke up early in the morning, and the first thing I did was burst into tears. And I was in this hotel room, I'm all by myself. I pulled the covers up over my head, and I just didn't even want to get out of bed. And, as I was laying there crying, I knew, I was being pressed for time. I thought in my mind, I have two choices right now. I can either, lie in bed and feel sorry for myself all day today, or I can get up and try and change the world. And I just said, well, I'm going to get up and try and change the world. And like whenever anything happened like that over the course of the next year, I remember just having that mantra, I'm going to get up and try and change the world. I'm going to get up and try and change the world. And it doesn't mean I didn't deal with those emotions or that I stuffed them down or whatever, but I did choose when I wanted to allow myself and how I wanted to deal with those rather than reacting in the moment. So, I know it's hard. I know it's not easy. And it's an evolution. I mean, it's something I'm still working on. I recently went to Rhythmia with my husband, which is a medically licensed ayahuasca facility down in Costa Rica. And you do these deep dive, just really intense finding out who you are. And I remember on the last day, I'm laying there and they do a lot of breath work. I'm doing the breath work and I just start to feel super hungry. And here's another secret, is the obstacle's often not what's in the way, it is the way. And so as I'm laying there doing this breath work, all I can think about is dinner. I'm like, I'm starving. I just want to eat. But I thought, no, I'm going to see how this could be, the obstacle is the way instead of in the way. So I asked the question, I said, okay, what does this hunger have to teach me? And the immediate thought I got was, Allison, it's not really food that your soul is craving. It's self-acceptance. And I just, whoa. That hit me like a ton of bricks. And I did the breath work. And at the end, we breathe in and hold our breath. And all of a sudden, my mind opens up and I see myself for the first time. I'd already saw myself as that crumpled person on the floor, but for the first time, I see myself in my greatness. I see myself in my glory. I see myself as the divine being and individual that I am. And that was the first time I truly saw that for myself. So it's interesting. I think the number one tip when you're in that struggle would be to ask, what is the lesson from this? How is this struggle? How is this trial and the unexpected guest or visitor? There's this term in an Indian term called a Devi Deva Bhava. I can't quite say it right. A Devi Deva Bhava, I think is what it is. But anyway, it means treat everything in your life as the unexpected guest or visitor. Is that unexpected guest or visitor is God. Treat your trials as if it's God teaching you a lesson. Treat, that hater that writes a bad post about you or comments, on you. Treat them as God. What can you learn from them? Treat everything in your life as God. So even those hardships, even those trials, what can I learn? What is this teaching me? How is this refining me? And the faster we can learn that lesson, then hopefully the faster we can get through that.
Oh, that is beautiful. And I really love what you said about the obstacle is not in the way, it is the way. I think that is so profound. I think that is so deeply changing if people accept that, because one of my teachings is pain is a part of the process. When you can change your relationship with pain, then you realize that the pain is not there to actually hurt you, it's there to grow you. And I think so many people, when we experience discomfort, we freeze. We're like, oh my goodness, what can I do very quickly to get out of this because it feels uncomfortable. But once you get through it, that's where the real miracles and beautiful moments come into play. And so while you were in that period, and as you were coming out and you've had this beautiful meditative experience, what was the journey like that unfolded after that?
Wow, I'm feeling really emotional about this because I remember being in the moment of the pain and thinking, this is really horrible. This is really horrible. Like, my life is falling apart. I'm ever going to be happy again. There was a point in my life when I was on, antidepressants for situational depression, where I didn't even know if I wanted to live anymore. In fact, there was a moment I remember waking up, and it was at the end of my marriage. And despite all the success in my career, I didn't even know if I wanted to live some days. And I woke up, and I remember in this moment, not even wanting to get out of bed and saying, God, do you even love me? And in that very moment, there was like this crack in the blinds, and the sun hit it just the right way. And the sun hit my face. And I got this idea to take a backpack and a journal and go hike to the top of a mountain. I was living in Arizona at the time. And so I did, and I sat down and I pulled out the notebook, and then I wrote Dear Allison up at the top, and I continued to write a letter from God or my higher self to myself. And in that letter was all the answers of what I needed to do. And I remember hiking down the mountain and thinking, well, I still have to have the courage, to act on these. And that was included, this marriage is done. Like, you need to move on from this and all this direction. It was really hard, but, and I remember that was my first glimmer of hope. Well, over the next 3 years, as I continued on, followed through with that, I'm now in a place where I am remarried to my soulmate, somebody who I'm growing and building a business with. I love my life. I wake up every morning. I'm so happy. I get to travel all over the world with all these amazingly cool people that are these friends and high-level leaders and entrepreneurs. And that's my business. That's what I get paid to do. And I, am doing the TV and the radio and the everything that, and it doesn't mean that everything's perfect. I mean, there's still things in my life I've, got that some people wouldn't consider perfect, but I'm happier than I've ever been. And, sometimes on the other side of that storm cloud is the rainbow. And I know when you're in the middle of the storm, that's the last thing you want to hear. Someone be like, it's going to be all right. But, wow, I just, it was a real refining, and those things had to happen in order for me to let go of those labels. Those things had to happen in order for me to let go of who I was, so I could become who I am now and step in the space of such amazing joy and alignment. And just every morning I wake up now and I just think I love my life, and it's so much sweeter because I went through those times when I didn't. So thank you for asking that.
Wow, that is just so inspiring and so beautiful. And I know someone out there needed to hear that exact moment. Hello, Real Success family. Candice Mama here. And as you know, at Real Success, we pride ourselves on bringing you the greatest minds from across the world. So it made so much sense that when our good friend Rob Moore was celebrating his 6th year and 800th episode of the Disruptors podcast, that we would team up and make sure that you get access to these amazing gifts. So visit Real Summits /RP to go and get access to tools on how to 10 times your social media following, 25 monetization strategies for social media, and some incredible VA and outsourcing tools that are exclusive only to this link, Real Summits /RP. In honesty, I believe that the greatest gift you are going to receive from this is actually getting access to the incredible mind Rob speaks to, the billionaires, the entrepreneurs, the athletes that you are going to be able to tap into. So make sure you visit Real Summits /RP. And as you know, you're building, and you said it took you about 3 years, to really go through this pain and through this process. Where along the journey did you decide to write your book, The Soul Intuition?
It's so interesting, Candice, at the very beginning of my journey. And what is so fascinating about this book is I was going through a really hard period of my life. I'd just been in a snowmobile accident, and I actually had a head injury. And I was told that I needed to spend a large majority of my day in a dark room in silence to let my brain heal. And I only had a limited amount of time that I could actually be in front of a screen, or that was recommended that I be in front of a screen. And I decided to use that time to write my book. So I got up every morning at 4:30. I wrote my book until 6:30 or 7. At the time, my kids were still younger. I was still, having to get them up and get ready for school. So this was before they got up. I just woke up super early and ended up writing my book. And it was fascinating. I look back on it now, and I'm a different person now than when I wrote my book. If I were to write my book now, there's great content in there, but I would probably write a few different things. But what that book did for me is it absolutely was my own personal healer during that time. And I owned a publishing company for years, and I work with a lot of different publishers and help the people that I work with get their books out and published. And I hear this so much from people that writing their book was their own therapy. So for me, it was right at the beginning of my journey. It was my own therapy. It's what helped me really solidify the things that I wanted to teach on, that I believed in, how passionately and deeply I believed in that, how passionate I was about sharing this tool of intuition with people. So yeah, mine was right at the very beginning of my journey. And who knows, maybe there'll be another book in there.
I think there will be. I really do. If there was one chapter or one lesson that you wrote in your book that you would either rewrite or add more to, which one would it be?
If I could rewrite or add a chapter in my book, that's really interesting. I think I would add a chapter just on what we've been talking about today, how oftentimes the obstacle is not in the way, it is the way. Something that I didn't understand as much when I wrote my book as I understand now is really the power of surrendering into these obstacles that we have in our life. I mean, it's so tempting just to avoid or to, be like, oh, this is impossible. But the more that I do this, the more that I realize, like, if I'm feeling a certain way, rather than avoiding that feeling or numbing that feeling with screen time or whatever, the more I just say, okay, I'm just going to dive into the feeling. It's always unconditional love on the other side of it. And whether it takes us 5 years to skirt around it and dabble with it and finally go into it, or 5 minutes I surrender into this motion. Okay, I'm going to cry and hurt really bad for 5 minutes. And then, oh, wow, I feel amazing now. I think that's the thing. And I've also found that often our intuition is strengthened when we do this as well, because the pain, the things that we're feeling is also our intuition. It's our intuition saying and presenting us with, hey, this is a feeling, this is an emotion, this is something that's coming up for you. And rather than saying, oh, no, I don't want to deal with that, actually addressing it actually strengthens and builds that trust with our intuition.
Oh, that is so powerful. And I love, love, love that. When we living in the age that we're living in, I'm very grateful personally for, books like The Secret, Mind Power, all of that started when I was around the age of 16. And I remember how it changed the course of my life, just getting access to that kind of information. Think and Grow Rich. I think we know all the titles. And the one thing I started to realize for myself is, because of how it was structured and positioned, it left out a lot of core messages, which is about pain, which is about trauma, which is about when your life crumbles. And I felt as though I was taking on a lot of blame for everything that was happening in my life, because I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm attracting this. And then I panicked. And then it was just like, then I got into this weird ping pong cycle with myself. And I find that a lot more so now when I log onto social media, I'm following people. I find that there's a sense of spiritual bypassing, where it's like, this terrible thing is happening to me. I'm not going to feel these emotions. I don't want to feel these emotions. I'm just going to positive think and affirm my way out of it. What do you think about that process? And do you think it's a healthy one?
Well, I know several people that were in The Secret. I know some of the authors of these big books that you're talking about. I've interviewed a lot of them, and they would agree with you that there is some missing pieces. And, I think The Secret, Think and Grow Rich, all these, they played a huge part. And I think in the evolution of us as humankind at that time, that was so needed. That was the next evolutionary step. But you're right, we've kind of moved beyond that. We've said, okay, well, now we've proven to ourselves that we can create things, right? And it's so interesting because there's these different evolutions of characters that we can go through. And in our own evolution, the first evolution is ego, right? Everything's happening to me. Like, I'm the victim. Why is this happening to me? Why is COVID happening to me? Why is this, I don't know, downfall of the government happening? Why is whatever's going on in the world, we're in that victim mode. Why is this happening to me? And then we step into this place where in our evolution, evolution where we feel more empowered. We realize, wait, I'm not actually the victim. I can kind of control some of this. Like I can decide how I want to feel. I can decide what I want to create in my life. And so we step into, but it's still coming from an ego place. So it's still coming from this place of, instead of everything is happening to me, now I am a creation of the divine, and I have the power to kind of control my life. I have the power to bring these things in that I want. And that's great. But what ends up happening is there's a misalignment with the universe, right? And a lack of fulfillment. So I think this is what you're describing when we just realize, hey, if I want $1 million, I can make that happen. I'm going to go get $1 million. But sometimes it's at the cost of what we want to do, or it's the cost of our own happiness. I've been there in my own evolution. I had such big goals in my mind, and I reached all those goals, and I realized that I was the most unhappy in my life that I'd ever been. And Tony Robbins talks about this too. He said there's two different components to success. One is achievement, one's fulfillment. Well, you can achieve anything, but it doesn't mean you're going to be fulfilled. So we have this evolution where we're the victim, everything's happening to us. Then we have this evolution where we realize, oh, wait, we can actually create anything we want. Like I'm a creator. But then the highest evolution, I think this is where society's going towards, is that you realize that it's not all about you. Like you are this player in the whole. And this is what I call the oneness mentality. Right? We are all one. Like I am you, you are me, I'm a component in the universe. And rather than saying, well, here's what I want, here's what I want to create, here's what I'm going to do, we step into, oh, well, how can I really be an instrument in the universe's hands? How can I help you? And how can you help me? And how can we as a society, as a world, how can we help each other grow? And this is the difference again between this is the me mentality, everything's happening to me, the group mentality, like I can create this, I'm part of a group that can create this, or the oneness mentality, which is we are all one. And as we align with our purpose and our role in the universe, then instead of creating things are created through us. We become an instrument.
Ooh, things are created through us. That is beautiful. And for people out there who want to start this intuitive journey, you told us a few skills, and you were like, write down on the piece of paper, access it in the morning and in the evening. What are some holistic things that people can start adopting intuition into like their everyday life? Like if they're getting an intuitive hit, let's say, and they're in the middle of work, or they're on a date, or they, doing grocery shopping, how can they embody this as a daily practice in their whole system, and instead of just at one point in time during their day?
Mm-hmm. So that's a really great question. One of the things that I recommend is we all have our phones with us all the time, is just in your notes section of your phone, when you get a thought, write it down, because there's sometimes we get these thoughts, but we can't always act on them immediately. The second thing is to really take time and acknowledge when you get an intuitive thought and you follow through on it. Take time to acknowledge that and to celebrate it, because our brains work based on celebration and reward. So if we can celebrate our intuition, if we can say, wow, that was awesome, I got this thought, I followed through on it, and this happened, and we take time to actually acknowledge that. I like to do this at the end of the day, but you can do it anytime throughout the day. And then there's other little things, one thing simple that you can do. This makes such a huge difference, not only in your health, but also in your entire being, is something I call intuitive eating. And this is a practice I often take people through when they're very first starting with their intuitive journey. And that is, every single day I have them write down what they eat and then how they feel an hour later. And I used to be a personal trainer. I'm not talking about writing down, I ate 3 almonds and 1/4 of a cup of cottage cheese. Like, you don't have to write measurements. You write down, like, I ate cold cereal for breakfast. Set a timer on your phone. When your timer goes off, write down how you feel. I feel tired and lethargic, or I feel excited and good, or, just find 2 words that describe how you feel. Eat lunch, whatever you ate for lunch, McDonald's, hamburger, or maybe you ate a salad, whatever you ate. And then an hour later, when your alarm goes off, write down how you feel. And I've had so many people be able to identify food sensitivities, food allergies, different emotions that are linked to different food. For women, it's really interesting because our hormonal cycle can affect this. And not only will you feel better physically, which will help you also connect to your intuition, but it also strengthens your intuition, because as you do this, as you now are strengthening the muscle and recognizing this, you start to tap into that part of your brain and your body and your intuition that actually helps you be able to eat and do things and live based on, intuitively how you feel and what's in highest purpose and alignment for you.
Wow, that is brilliant. I love that. I'm definitely going to start incorporating that as well. And Allison, as we come to the end of our interview and our time together, what is something that is currently bringing you joy?
Something that is currently bringing me joy. First thing that came to my mind, I'm just going to unfilter, is snuggling. I love snuggling with my husband. It's so great. Like this morning I woke up and I knew that we had this interview. And so I set my alarm like 20 minutes earlier before I had to get out of bed, just so that I could cuddle and snuggle with him. So that brings me massive amounts of joy. There's lots of other things, but unfiltered, that's the very first thing that just brings me lots of joy, is cuddling with my husband.
I love that. And what is real success to you?
Real success is when you are, like I talked about before, you have the one hand up, the one hand down. You're helping other people. You have the achievement and the fulfillment. So real success to me is when I feel real success when I'm impacting and changing other people's lives for the better.
That's incredible. And our final question is, what is one thing about you that we will not find on Google?
Ooh, that's a really good question. Okay. I will say, what is one thing you won't find about me on Google? Well, I'll tell you this. I love to play basketball. I still love to go to the gym and play basketball and play one-on-one a lot with my husband. And actually, you might find this on Google because I think I posted it on Facebook, but I did beat him in our one-on-one game the other day. So that's one thing you won't find about me. Maybe on Google. You might find it on Facebook.
I absolutely love that, Allison. And is there anything that I may not have asked you during this time that you'd like to leave our audience with?
If there's one thing that I would really hope that everybody would hear, it would be this, is that you are here for a reason. You're here listening to this show for a reason. You're here on this planet for a reason. You're here where you are in your life for a reason. And just really take time to listen to that and then to celebrate it, because there's a reason why you're here, and there's things, important things that and reasons why you're here that you could be celebrating, and things that you could be doing right now. So just take time to listen and to love yourself and to listen to what those things are.
Thank you so much, Allison. It has been such an honor and a privilege to speak to you today. That was incredible. Be sure that you are commenting and letting us know what parts about this interview stood out for you. We so love hearing from you, and it allows us to know what we should be doing as we move forward. If you haven't caught some of the episodes, be sure that you go back and you check out what we've already created. I am sure there's a teacher on the platform that's just for you. As always, it has been my honor and deepest privilege to serve you this week, and I look forward to doing it again next week.